Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Mojo Tarot, and welcome to another mod with me. Today we are going to be edging a couple of different decks in my Lenormand collection. So since there's not a ton of cards in a Lenormand deck, I thought maybe we could kick a couple of them out together. The one I will definitely be doing, which I'm most excited about, is actually edging my copy of my Lenormand deck, which is the Rusted Lenormand. And I'm going to go ahead and edge this deck in a rust color, which I think will be a lot of fun. So I'm really looking forward to that process. So let's pop on over to my craft table and get started. I thought we would start our Lenormand edging adventure with my Lenormand because, of course, as you can probably imagine, this is the one I am most excited to go ahead and edge. This is my copy of my Rusted Lenormand. And it has the rusted theme throughout the deck on the cards, and also in terms of just the color palette. It's kind of that rust color. So what I wanted to do is edge it in the Distressed Ink Rusty Hinge, and I will probably add, maybe do an overlay with some reds and some browns as well, just to give it that kind of really truly rusted and worn look. So to start with, we're just going to basically edge the deck, a first layer in the rusted hinge. So I'm going to start with the title card here, just to give me an idea of how this ink pad is going to apply to the deck. And what it's going to look like. So being as most Lenormands are only 36 cards, mine does have a few extra cards, so it's a 40 card deck. But I thought this, for the most part, should go pretty quick and easy. These are small cards and there's not that many of them. Okay, so I've got about half of the deck edged in the rusty hinge to start with. So I thought we'd just take a quick peek, quick comparison. Hopefully you can see here. So here is the cards that I have edged, and the cards, of course, that I have not. And I think that color is, I think, just like a perfect color match. I'm really quite pleased with that. And I love that you can see the pop of it on the side, which is great. Matches the front really well. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up edging the rest of this deck, and then we'll check back in. So while we're waiting for my Rusted Lenormand to dry, I thought we would go ahead and work on my Celtic Lenormand. I thought about doing like a gold or a copper on this, but I think what I'm going to do to match the back is I think I'm going to do a yellow base coat and then go back in with some distressed ink and add some of this darker, which almost looks like the tea-dye distressed stamps. So I thought maybe this one we might do in 2 stages. We might go ahead and do the base coat and then add that other layer to it. So with this one, we're just gonna basically get the yellow down. And this particular yellow, the midliner yellow, is just, it's one of my favorites. I love how this yellow comes out. It's kind of like a marigold. It's really rich and kind of a it's really rich and warm yellow, which I really like. So I thought we'll go ahead and do this one in the yellow, and with that little bit of tea stain overlay to it. So I'm going to go ahead and do about half the deck, and we'll check back in. Okay, so I got half of my Celtic Lenormand edge. Let's just take a quick peek here. My yellow is totally dying, so I might have to go back over this with a different yellow, but here you can see it in comparison to the cards I haven't edged. I might be able to make it work with the overlay of the distressed ink, but I'm not sure at this point actually that my marker is going to make it through the whole deck. But I really kind of like the yellow sides. I think it looks great with the back. So I'm going to see if I can power through with this yellow marker, or if I'm going to have to switch to a different one, or maybe just set it aside till I can get another one. I might have another one of these somewhere, but in the meantime, I'm just going to try to get it to power through, hopefully, and get it finished up, because I am planning on doing a different layer on here, so I'm not too terribly worried about it. So anyway, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead. So I'm going to go ahead and finish doing this other side of the deck here and see. I don't know if I go to the other side. This one's doubled. If that will get me any better. I think the ink is the same. The ink well is the same either way. But, you know, I give it a shot. See if that gets me a little bit further on in this process. And then definitely going to have to get another yellow. This one is my favorite yellow color, so I tend to use it for like pretty much everything. So yeah, I don't think that's coming out. I'm gonna see if I have another one of these. I might actually, because it is one of my favorites. So yep, the trials of deck edging. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this one up, and then we'll take a look. So next I thought we would do the Scrying Ink Lenormand. Now I've kind of divided the deck into a couple of different piles, and I've been trying to get markers to kind of match. So what I have here is cards that have a lot of blue to them in terms of their little color accents. You can see a lot of these have mostly blue, a few different other colors mixed in, but mostly blue. These ones have a bit of pink, and the majority of the cards in this deck, this one could have gone either way, but I had less pink, so I put it in there. The majority of the cards in this deck do have that blue color, more so than any other color. So like the green ones here, there's only 4. And the purple ones here is only 5. So you can see here that we don't have very many in the other colors, and these two were kind of like a red and a yellow, which I wasn't really sure what to do with them, because they don't really have any of these 4 color matches on them. So I'll probably just go ahead and pick a color and run with it. So the majority of the cards are going to be blue edged, which is fine because that's the primary color, kind of this bluish purple, blue gray on the back here. But I think once they're all mixed in, I think it'll look okay. So basically I'm just gonna sit and I'm going to edge each one in the colors. For the pink, I'm going to use this Crayola beige, and I've done some sort of color swatches here. Again, cardstock's totally different than paper, so the color may come out a little bit different. We'll have to see. And for the rest of them, the blue, the green, and the purple, I'm gonna use my mild liners. And these two, I think maybe we'll just do, I don't know. What do we have the less of? I think we have the less green. So maybe we'll do, actually, I think maybe we'll just go ahead and do blue for these, because the blue is the primary color. So yeah. Or maybe I might just go ahead and do, I do have like an orange and I do have a yellow, so I might just throw those in there. We'll see how I feel when we get close to the end. So I'm going to pull these two aside, and I'm not going to work on those quite yet. I'm going to go ahead and start with the blue cards first. And I'm just going to go through and edge each one in their matching color. So the next deck I thought we would do is my Anna K. And I have, as I was going through the deck, I noticed that the majority of the borders fell into one of 3 colors. So they were kind of darker. Some of them are black, but they're mostly dark green. And then we have some kind of burgundy brown ones. And some blue and kind of a blue gray colors. So I actually went to the store and I got some markers to match those colors, and I ended up getting the these Artist Lofts alcohol-based marker. I've not used these on a deck before, so I'm hoping that they're not going to bleed horribly, but this was the brand that I happened to find the colors that I needed in. I did happen to have a green in the art alternative, so that was fine. I went ahead and got a burgundy and a navy. So I'm hoping that these are not going to bleed terribly on my cards. What I want to do is go ahead and test, and what I thought I would see is if I can maybe get, there are a couple extra cards in this deck, so I was going to see if I could get the extra cards. So here's a lily. I know there's 2 lilies, and only one of them is in here. I was hoping to get that I would be able to have some of the extra cards to just try it on just in case. So there's the man and the woman card. I know there's 2 of those. There's the other lily. And let's see. I think the other man and woman, yeah, is in here. Okay, so as far as extra cards, I do have 1 for each. So being as this is the only one I have in the green, I'm going to go ahead and use that one to test. I could also use the extra card too, but maybe what I'll do is, because I have multiples of these, maybe, let's see. Maybe what I'll do is I'll go ahead and leave these 2. I'll do the extra card in the green, and then I'll pick 1 set of these to do. And let's go with these 2 because they're lighter, a little bit lighter color palette. I should be able to see better if it's going to bleed at all. So that's the plan. Let's just do that real quick. See what we get. Let's see what happens. Hopefully it'll be good things, hopefully. So with these alcohol markers, pretty much as soon as you put it on there, it's on there and it's gonna stay. I am wondering though, if I were to use the brush end, if that would make a difference. I don't generally use the brush end, but I wonder if that would control a little bit more. And it looks like actually it might, at least in this one. So maybe we'll try the brush side on this one, and then we'll test the other sides when we get to these other cards. Okay, fingers crossed, because I totally love this deck. So here's hoping this goes well. I am, of course, angling to the back. And I'm trying to do a lighter coat on it because I'd rather go through and put a second coat on rather than layer it on too thick the first time around. So if there's any bleed on the back, yep, I can see it. There is bleed on the back. And it is not wiping off, but I really can only see it when it catches the light. I can just see the kind of shiny finish of the marker. It doesn't look like it bled on the front much at all, so that's good. So I don't know that using the other end really made a difference, but let's just try it. Let's just see. I do feel like the brush end controls it a little bit more and it bleeds a little bit less. Could just be me, but I kind of feel like that's the case. So this is the blue, so let's go ahead and try this one. Okay, fingers crossed, because this is an actual card. I may also distress these when I'm done if they're too bright. I had a hard time finding a blue color, a navy color that I liked. So let's see, I always do give them a wipe just in case, especially with blues and reds, because they do tend to bleed or rub off. Yeah, that's bleeding into the card. So one of the things that I noticed about this deck is in some places the artwork actually comes over the border. So here we can see the snow is kind of coming over the border, this background here. Like if you look in the lily, like we have border all around here, but the lily is actually over the top of the background. And it's really cool. And I really like the look of that. I think these are just phenomenally done borders. I just absolutely love them. Like here's a really good example. So the whole floor on this one, if you can see, is behind the blue border. So comes down around here and the blue border almost becomes part of the wall. And I just think that's so cool. It's just a really clever use of border. But that also means that in places where the card is light, that it's going to bleed in there. And I can see that this one would need a second layer. So let's just go ahead and do that. Because I'm kind of committed now, at least to these cards, right? So gonna have to do a second layer on the blue. And hope that I didn't just really bleed that into the white more. And I think it's gonna work okay. I mean, I can see the hint of it, but like really only if I'm looking for it. So I don't think it's gonna be a huge issue. Most of these cards are dark in tone in their palette, so there's only a few cards that where there's some white that touches up over the borders, that touches the card edges, that might be an issue. So I don't know what somebody did to these markers, but there was of course only one of each of these colors. So, you know, I had to get the ones that were kind of gross, but so I think it's gonna look really cool if I can get the markers to behave. That's really just the only issue. Oh, I missed a spot there. It looks like this burgundy red color is covering really well, so I may only need one coat of that. That one turned out better. That one did better than the blue, I think. So I think that that's going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and edge this deck in their 3 colors. So we'll have this stack will be green, this stack will be the burgundy, and you can see it just has the white edges right now. And this stack will be blue. Okay, wish me luck. So we are down to the last deck that I'm going to modify, the last Lenormand deck I'm going to modify right now at this time in this video. And this is my Rana George Lenormand, and this one is it's fairly new to me and I think it's really cool. It does have gold like foil on it, which is really neat. Has gold foil on the back. It's really beautiful. So I kind of went back and forth about what I wanted to do this deck in. There's a lot of colors on the front, and I definitely could have done some reds and oranges to match the pillars here. But I decided really what I wanted to match was the back. And then I went back and forth about, well, I could do blue, the navy blue, because I do now have a navy blue marker that I just used on my Anna K. I could do this lighter blue as well, because I do have markers that would fit that, like I used on the Scrying Ink. But it's got so much gold foil stamping. And this deck feels very opulent to me. So I just felt like that I just kind of needed to do the gold. And so I decided to go ahead and use the Brilliance Galaxy Gold stamp on this particular deck and see how that turns out. Plus, I haven't done a Brilliance stamp in this video. I've done the distressed inks and I've done markers. So I thought it'd be good to just go ahead and do one of these. I did have to get a new set of my metallic ones because I wore the other ones out. So this is a new stamp pad, so it should work well. These are very wet inks, so they do tend to run a bit, but they clean up really well. So I'm just gonna run it along the edges here. And I think this deck is gonna look really good. Edged in gold, you can see here all that runoff, so, which is fine. It wipes right off, so it's not a huge deal. This is a little bit of a messier mod, a messier edging, but it comes out really cool. It looks very metallic and very shimmery. You can see what a mess it makes, but so I thought we'll just go ahead and do this one in the gold, and I think it'll just add to the opulence of the deck once it's gold gilded, which is funny because I don't like gold gilding, and I tend to cut it off all my decks, but I don't like shiny, metally gold gilding. Gold paint or gold ink on the side of a deck is totally fine. That works for me because I can't actually feel it. So yeah, so I think it's going to come out really cool. So we'll check back in here in a little bit when I get some of it edged. Gonna need more paper towels. So now that we finished edging quite a few of my Lenormand decks, I thought we'd take a look at all of the finished products. So we have my Rusted Lenormand, which was done in the Rusty Hinge and the Vintage Photo. So what I did for this one was I basically just did the entire thing, every card in the Rusty Hinge, and then I just overlaid it with a rubbing of the Vintage Photo just to give it that layered effect. I think it looks beautiful with the backs. You can see here the sides, get that wonderful rusty color, which I think works really well with this deck. Flip it around so you can see it catching the orange. Super cool, love it. So that one was the Rusted Lenormand in the Rusty Hinge with an overlay of the Vintage Photo. So the next one that we did was the Celtic Lenormand, and this one I did in yellow. Hopefully we can zoom in, and I added the tea dye stamp over the top of it to distress it and give the corners in particular a distressed look. So I think it works really well with this deck. It actually matches the backs really well. So yeah, I think that one came out really great. I really actually like all of these. I think they all came out really wonderful. I'm very pleased with them. So that's So that was the Celtic Lenormand, and it was done in the mild liner yellow with a tea dye distressed ink overlay. The next one that we did was the Scrying Ink Lenormand, and this one was done in just a variety of different markers. And you can see here the mix of colors. So I did the blue, the pink, the green, and the purple. And overall, I really like the colors. I think they work really well. I'm going to go ahead and give them a shuffle so we can see them mixed in. So here they are all mixed in, and I really love the pastel colors. It really goes with the pastel colors in the artwork, I think, and it just works really beautifully for this deck. So this one was the Scrying Ink Lenormand, and it was done in a variety of markers. So primarily done in the mild liner. So we have mild liner blue, mild liner purple, mild liner in green, and then I used for the pink, because I wanted a really soft pastel pink, I used the Crayola. I used the Crayola beige. Next we did the Anna K. Lenormand, which is another one of my favorites, and this is the one that I did in the markers with the green, the red, and the blue. And I can see now where I missed a few little corners, but the color match, I think, came out really well, because we have this selection of all the green borders, or green black borders. Then we have the brown red borders, which I think work really well, and then the blue kind of gray borders. So there were a couple of places, I don't know if it'll pick up on camera, where I did get a little bit of bleeding, particularly with the red. And here you can see it for sure. So You can see it right here in the corner. So these markers did bleed a little bit, and I kind of knew they would. The alcohol art markers almost always do, but I still think it came out wonderful. So let's go ahead and give them a shuffle and see what they look like mixed in. So here they are all mixed in, and I love the color palette that it creates. It just really helps to mimic the color palette on the borders and just really on the deck in general. So I think those ones came out really great. And of course the blacks, the backs are just black. So black would have worked really well on this deck as well, but I really like the mix of colors tying into the borders that we see on the cards. I think it worked really well. So that was another one that I think turned out really great. So the Anna K was done in the 3 art marker. So we have the green marker and the art alternative marker, and this one is Sage. Then we had the Artist Loft marker with the ruby red, and the Artist Loft marker in the sapphire blue. So up next we did the Rana George Lenormand, which is another one that I think came out really great. I used the Brilliance Brilliance gold stamp on this one, and I think that for the most part it came out beautiful. You can definitely tell there is a split in this deck. So this half of the deck was printed on one type of cardstock, I think, and this half of the deck was printed on another one. These cards are bent a little bit, as you can see it there. It's just, they're kind of just bending. I have not used this deck. I've not shuffled it, so it came like this. And you can definitely see a difference in the way the ink applied. So I think I'm going to take this half of the deck where it didn't apply very well, and I'm going to try a second coat on it just to see if that helps cover it up. And sometimes you get that with decks. You get where, you know, the cards are printed in sheets and then they're cut and then assembled into a deck. And so sometimes you get a little bit different variations on the cardstock, and you can definitely see it on this deck. They don't, it's not a noticeable difference when you're just looking at the artwork, and it doesn't really feel any different. So I don't think that's going to bother me at all. I just happened to, you know, notice it when I was looking at the edging. And really, once I shuffle them, it's probably all going to mix in just fine, and I won't even be able to tell. But because I know it right from the get-go, I'm probably just going to go ahead and throw another layer on this half of the deck and just see if that helps a little bit. And because I'm going to do that, I'm not going to shuffle them because I do want to keep it separate. So, but I do think it came out really, really great. So that's the Rana George Lenormand, and it was done in the Brilliance Galaxy Gold. So that's a look at the Lenormand decks in my collection that I did go ahead and modify. So real quick, I thought I'd just mention the decks that I didn't modify and why. One of the decks I didn't modify is the White Mojo Lenormand, and I didn't modify this one because the borders really don't bother me on this deck, and they are white, and it wraps around to a white border on the back, which also doesn't bother me. So I think the borders on this deck work really well. The sides are white, and it just, you know, usually doing the sides is because your sides are like usually this kind of off, raw, papery, not a nice white like this. So this one I'm going to leave as is unless these sides start getting like really, really dingy and gross, and then I might, you know, trim it up a little bit or clean it up and then edge it. But for right now, I'm going to leave it all white because I think it works, and it's called the White Mojo Lenormand. So I'm pretty happy with it the way that it is. So that is also the case with my, left the instructions in there, with my Bluebird Lenormand. So we have this kind of vintagey beige paper on the front and on the back, and the sides match it really well. So same kind of scenario where we've got this like tan old paper look, and it just really works really well from the front to the side to the back. So I didn't feel like, again, that this was a deck that I really needed to edge because the colors really worked really well the way that they were. So I didn't do this one, but again, like the White Mojo, if that becomes an issue, I will go ahead and edge it at some point. Another Lenormand that I didn't edge for obvious reasons is my 1889 Lenormand, and it's because it has this gorgeous matte gold gilding on it. There's no reason to edge this deck because it came in beautiful gilded magnificence already. So that's another one that I didn't edge because it's already edged for me. So the last 2 decks that I didn't edge are decks that I just am not edging at this time, and that is the Seeker's Lenormand, because I do have the other 3 decks by this creator. So I have all the decks, all the Skull Garden decks, and I want to do an edging of them all together. So I'll probably do a separate video on that because I think an edging would be pretty on these decks. But I do have all 4 of them, so I thought I'd go ahead and do those all together in a collection of their own. And the same thing with the Fairy Tale Lenormand. I have multiple Lisa Hunt decks, and I am going to do another Mod With Me collection where I'm going to mod all of my Lisa Hunt decks at one time. So this one got saved and set aside for that collection, just like the Skull Garden decks, the Seeker's Lenormand got set aside for that. So that is a look at all of my modified Lenormands to date. We'll be catching those other ones in their related collections. And in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this mod with me of my Lenormand collection. I look forward to seeing you again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.